Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, no areas are spared from Israeli bombardment in Gaza, even those under the UN flag.
6 schools affiliated with the UN and its agencies have been hit.
Where can Palestinians turn for support? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Schools have been one of the few places Palestinians in Gaza turn to for safety. For many, they hope it's the safest place for them and their loved ones. But on Sunday, that hope turned into tragedy again. An Israeli rocket tore through a school ceiling in central Gaza, killing at least 22 people, including children. That school was part of a network run by the UN's Agency for Palestine Refugees, or commonly known as UNRWA. It's been a lifeline for Palestinians in Gaza, providing them with education, healthcare, and essential aid. Maram, describe for me where you are right now.
I am at Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah, in the central area of Gaza.
Maram Humaid is a journalist with Al Jazeera. Connecting with her on Zoom was a challenge due to Gaza's unreliable internet. So can you just paint a picture for me? Are you sitting down at a table inside of a tent and lots of people are walking around, or what does it look like?
Yeah. Actually, I'm inside the tent on a table. And in front of me, the emergency department where the ambulance is evacuating injured and killed people into the hospital. In front of me, lots of people displaced living in the hospital.
Yeah, okay. So it's busy, it's crowded,
yeah,
it's
all very
loud.
crowded. For me, it looks like anything than a hospital.
Yeah, I bet.
Hospital is supposed to be a calm place to receive the patients, but for me, it's not. It's like a festival, a festival for death, a festival for displaced people, a festival of those who are crying over their beloved ones. For me, it's horrible staying inside the hospital and witnessing those who are being evacuated and then see how their families cry over them. And then inside the hospital, next to the morgue, there are people who are praying the funeral prayer, and then they took those bodies with them to the next cemetery to be buried. So I'm witnessing this whole process since the past 9 months, and it just became the normal.
Yeah. Madam, thank you for describing that, and thank you for talking to us and working in conditions that are anything but good conditions for a conversation. We appreciate you doing it anyway. We want to talk about the recent attacks on UNRWA's schools. You know that Israeli forces have bombed 8 schools in Gaza in the last 2 weeks alone. Those schools were run by UNRWA, and they were considered safe havens by the UN and other international organizations. What do we know about the people who were sheltering there?
Every time I'm going to a school to report on the situation of people living there, I feel sorry for them. They are living in dire conditions. They live in classrooms. I see in most of the cases the classroom hosting more than 10 families inside the classroom. No water, no sanitation, no access to clean bathrooms. There is maybe 2 or 3 bathrooms for the thousands or the hundreds of people displaced and living inside the school. People are using the fire wood in order to cook and to do their daily chores. The sewage water running out of the school. The faces of the children who are they are unclean. They look that they didn't change their clothes from days. Also inside the open yard of the school, there are tents. In every centimeter, there is people everywhere. So when I hear that there's a bombing or a targeting for a school, directly it comes to my mind that it's a massacre. So when you are bombing at those places, crowded with people, the normal result would be not less than 20 people killed.
Wow.
And more than 90 to 80 people injured with severe injuries.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on that, the fact that this now feels like the norm, because UNRWA says that 70% of its schools in Gaza have been bombed and that 539 people sheltering on its premises have been killed. But people go to these schools because there is the feeling that they might be safe spaces, right?
Yeah. This is the first expectation, that they are run by UNRWA. It's supposed to be a neutral organization taking care of the refugees and displaced and giving them services. But after the ongoing targeting of these schools, people realize that there is no place safe in Gaza.
Well, the schools weren't the only targets attacked by Israel this month. On Monday, the UN agency said that Israeli forces completely destroyed UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza City. And that comes after months of hits against UNRWA, attempts by Israel to label the agency as a terrorist organization, funding pulled from major donors, and at least 195 of its workers killed in Gaza, the highest staff death toll in UN history. We heard from Tamara al-Rifai from UNRWA.
The last week has been one of the deadliest weeks in Gaza since the war started. The images that are coming out of the UNRWA headquarters are really shocking.
For you, Maram, with their headquarters being flattened and all of these hits against them, what does it actually mean for people who rely on it in Gaza?
The attack on UNRWA is not new thing. UNRWA was under fire since, at least the past 2 years. There were a lot of accusations against UNRWA. This totally affected the situation of, the financial situation of UNRWA and the ability to serve more of the refugees in Gaza. 70% of people are refugees in Gaza. So this started before the war. And now, during the war, the attack against UNRWA accelerated, and it became clear that Israel tries to deliberately target UNRWA, but without clearly explaining the reason. But we all know the reason, that Israel is targeting everyone who supports Palestinians or displaced families, and this applies for many organizations. But I think UNRWA more the wide targeting out of these organizations, and because it's the leading organization serving in Gaza, which has schools and which has headquarters and serving thousands of people. And it's really sad to see the continuation of this targeting, the openness of this targeting without anyone taking action to stop the targeting. There's no rules in this war. Everything is a target, no one exception, even UNRWA, anything else, everything is under the target. This is the reality now.
And then we lost our connection with Maram. After the break, she comes back online. After more than 9 months of Israel's war on Gaza, journalists are often no safer than the people they're covering.
Their fear from schools, houses, buildings, tents now. Do not know where to go. You fear from everything now.
That's Mahmoud Alshawa, a journalist sheltering in Deir al-Balah. He told us about the challenges of reporting when people don't see the point.
When I go to the camp, one of the mothers there told me, "What are you filming? There is no one care about us. They see us killed months and no one make anything. What you will change with what you are filming now?" And I cannot say anything to her.
Maram Humaid also shares that experience. After a few minutes, we were able to connect with her on Zoom again.
Hello?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. When you talk to people, when you're out interviewing, do they want to still be interviewed? Are people feeling hopeless about the point?
Actually, this is another story. Like every time, I feel that people fed up of being interviewed, and they lost the trust in press and media and all the outlets, and they are desperately in need for help. Someone who could help them in managing their affairs and changing their lives. And every time I ask them, I prepare an introduction, assure them that I am in the same ship and I'm in the same suffering and I am displaced myself. I'm not, excluded of what is going on. And I recount also my own experience. So this could bring some comfort to them. Sometimes, I feel helpless, and in times I myself, I cry. Like, I'm being insulted, but at the same time, I'm living with the same situation. I'm living the same circumstances. It's become 10 months now of reporting and talking to those people, covering different topics: the displacement, the killing, the targeting, the suffering, water, sanitation, of living the hotels, the many things that we wrote about and we reported about without nothing being changed.
Mm-hmm.
They have the right, actually. They have the right to protest and not to speak up.
So, Maram, it sounds like part of the hopelessness is about not having a safe place for people to go, especially when people have been told places are safe and then they are not. And it's happened time and time again. So, in a recent piece you wrote for Al-Jazeera.com, you spoke to a woman named Wad, and she survived an airstrike attack on the Al-Mawasi camp, an area that's been designated as a safe zone by Israel. This isn't new. We know that Israel has been targeting sites that they say are safe. What did she tell you? Can you hear me? We ended up losing Maram before we could hear her answer. This time, we reconnected on WhatsApp.
So Wahid is a journalist. She was displaced from Gaza, then to Khan Yunis, then to Nusayrat, then to Rafah, and then she made it back to Nusayrat, and then to Mawasi Khan Yunis. So we are talking about 8 times of being displaced. And then she ended up to be living in a tent with her family. She told me that it was a normal day. She was coordinating for a story for Nasser and hospital. And then she was working with her 2 brothers. One of them was going to fill water and the other was going to buy some groceries. And it was like seemingly a normal day. And then the bombing started, white dust around her. She wasn't able to realize what is going on. And then when she saw the bombing, it was very near, and she was shouting for her brothers. She thought that her brothers were killed during the bombing. She was running with thousands of people, and men, women, elderly, kids. People were just running and shouting and screaming. She told me she saw people shredded on the ground, kids who lost some, parts of their bodies. She saw a pregnant woman bleeding between her legs. She saw people who are carrying a man whose leg was shattered, and a man was running behind them and holding an amputated leg and saying that I found his leg. So she's bringing up horrible scenes from the place that no one could imagine that this is happening.
Every time I talk about this, I cry and I keep checking myself. My hands, my legs, my head, and my eyes. Why did all of those people lose their legs, their limbs, and their children? Everybody around is screaming and crying.
And then luckily she found her brothers unharmed. Alhamdulillah, this was a good part of the story.
Wow. That is a heartbreaking story. And as we've said, this was supposed to be a safe zone. But these attacks keep pushing people, like Wad, from place to place. So, Maram, where do people find safety now?
We are talking about targeting shelters and places that are supposed to be safe zones for people. So now it's clearly that safe zones are a mere lie, and they are set to manipulate the international audience and just to claim Israel as a peaceful country that looks for the safety of people and civilians. But in reality, Israel doesn't care. But they deliberately target civilians with the heaviest weapons, with the heaviest missiles ever. Israel is using the silence of words to continue the massacres. Israel exploiting this silence to kill more and more of the Palestinians in Gaza. And I think that this is the sin of and the guilt of the world, who stayed silent over the past 9 months without taking any action to prevent Israel of more killing to the civilians and to the innocent people in Gaza. And inside the safe zones, I feel that safe zones are a trap for the people. They became the killing zones, not the safe zones. I don't feel safe inside the hospital. I don't feel safe in my home, in my place, in my relatives' homes. No place is safe in Gaza, and people are just ran out of choices. It's a matter of luck to survive here.
And that's The Take. This episode was produced by Sarí el-Khalili, Khaled Soltan, and Ashish Malhotra, with Veronique Eshaya, Mohammed Zain Shafi Khan, Duha Mosaad, Manahil Naveed, and me, Malika Bilal. It was edited by Noor Wazwaz. Our sound designer is Alex Roldan. Joe Plourde mixed this episode. Alexandra Locke is The Take's executive producer, and Ney Alvarez is Al Jazeera's head of audio. We'll be back tomorrow.